Hi, Capricorn Sun and Rising. Welcome to your June 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So in June, we have another eclipse, this time a solar eclipse. And we also have some retrograde action and direct action going on. So that can be good because Mercury is going direct. And Mercury is a personal planet, so it can affect us personally, just in general. So starting with looking at where the sun is at, because there's actually several planets in Gemini as the month begins. And for you, this is your sixth house of work. So the sun is there in the sixth house. You have Mercury retrograding through there. Venus is even there as the month begins. And the North Node is still transiting through that sixth house. Now, the sixth house is ruled by Virgo in the universal chart. So, Virgo's an earth sign, and the sixth house is connected to work matters of all stripes, including your workplace, your co-workers, the type of work that you're doing. It can just run the gamut, whether you're employed or unemployed or underemployed or overemployed, or you're working two jobs or something like that. Your health is connected to the sixth house. So these are earthy, practical matters. I could say earthly practical matters too. And so you fit in right at home when you have transits in this house. This may be a time when you're getting your life more organized, as if you even have to, Capricorn, but still, you might be doing that. And yet, Gemini energy is very changeable, and with Mercury in retrograding in Gemini, you can change your mind very easily, and you are rethinking something. Now, I will give you a scenario that may not apply to most or maybe any of you, but I think it will, just because of the nature of the times that we live in. We are starting to see more and more opening up of society based on our current situation. And obviously this varies from country to country, so I understand that. But for whom it applies, this situation can lead to choices that have to be made. If you want to work remotely, if you want to work hybridly, or if you want to work in the office. Now, you may not have a choice in the matter. You may be dictated to by your boss, and your boss might say, okay, everybody's going to come back into the workplace. This isn't necessarily the case across the board, because some companies want to save money on office space. So some of them will decide that they can get more productivity from their employees if they leave them alone. But some do want to have that ability to oversee what the employee is doing, if at all possible. So this is going to pose an interesting dilemma for you, Capricorn, because some of you, if this is your sun sign, you may have inner planets in Aquarius very easily. I'm talking about Mercury, Venus, and Mars specifically. Your moon sign can be anything, your rising sign can be anything, but those three specific planets. And so, who knows what your moon sign is? You might have the moon in Sagittarius, or your rising sign in Gemini, and you're very independent, you like your freedom, even though your sun sign is in Capricorn. So people like that can kind of get a little, rubbed the wrong way, because you do like to be independent, even if you don't mind working for somebody else. So that may be something that you're rethinking. You may be rethinking what you're doing as service to others altogether. I mean, for whatever reason. So that Mercury retrograde is in full effect as the month begins. On the 2nd, Venus goes into Cancer, which is your opposite sign. Very good for marital live-in situations or one-on-one relationships altogether. Can boost earnings if you are client-based, if you have your own clients. That can be represented by the 7th house. This is public relations. If you have a public presence, that can be enhanced, sweetened. This is good for, marriage proposals, romantic commitment scenarios. On the 10th, or even actual marriages, marriage ceremonies or commitment ceremonies. On the 10th, and this will be, continuing until the end of the month, so in this house. On the 10th, there's a solar eclipse at 19 degrees of Gemini. So this is new beginnings, kind of boosted because it's an eclipse. So it's a powerful new moon in this work sector. Maybe new opportunities. Whether they appear immediately is another story because of the Mercury retrograde. So don't want to, things might be up in the air for a few more weeks, but they can still manifest. These, eclipse energies can have a longer impact. So opening up this area for you, and even like healing modalities as well. On the 11th, Mars goes into Leo, so now we're talking the other side of that 7th house, which is the 8th house, okay? So Mars goes into the 8th, and that is Scorpio's domain, and that is very intense from a standpoint of psychological investigation. And like the person who decides, I could kind of see a Capricorn person doing this, deciding that you need therapy and then going like 5 days a week. That Mars is very ambitious, but the 8th house is very obsessed. So that's the problem with it. It tends to go overboard and be, or Mars tends to go overboard too, I would say. But the other area that this represents is, sex is connected to the 8th house, and Mars can be the sex drive. So maybe the sex drive goes into overdrive. It's funny. I used to work in a health food store, and there was this. I haven't heard about this herb. There was an herb called horny goat weed or something. I just that just popped into my head after all these years. I think that was the name of it, and I think that it wasn't. I don't think that was the trade name. I think that was an actual name of this herb. And I think goats are associated with. I don't know if goats are associated with horniness, but it's funny because you are the goat. That's why I was thinking about that. So anyway, but the 8th house too is the house of shared resources. Okay, so inheritances and Mars can be like, kind of like conflict. So if there has been somebody who has passed away, especially if they have been close to you in recent months, Capricorn, there might be some kind of fight over an inheritance. on or if you're getting divorced, because Venus in the seventh house could mean like seventh house can be a lawsuit. So if money is coming up for some legal matter, including the dissolution of a marriage, the dissolving of a marriage, then that could be what that means for some Capricorns. So maybe there's a fight involved with it. But, like I always say, if you have Mars going into a certain house, that's a good time to really check your, your attitude, to make sure that you're not being too aggressive, because, you can overdo it. That's where the overdoing comes in, where a person is too quick to try to fight something, and because they want it so badly. On the 20th, the sun goes into Cancer. There's that your opposite sign. You have Jupiter retrograding on the same day. So Jupiter is retrograding in Pisces. Jupiter went into Pisces briefly. I did a video for you guys for Sun and rising in Capricorn, and how this Jupiter trans in Pisces is going to affect you. This is going to be kind of a brief period in 2021 and more consistently in 2022. So that's what that's all about. And so that's a powerful day in and of itself, because the sun is going into a cardinal sign, and you're a cardinal sign too, Capricorn. So that's why you rule the winter solstice. So, northern hemisphere person here. On the 22nd, Mercury goes direct. Oh, one thing I have to note is that with the Jupiter retrograding, it's going to retrograde in your third house. So this is the house of communication. This is the house that this is the house that Gemini rules in the universal chart. So I wonder if that's going to muck up the Mercury retrograde for you. But actually, it's only going to be a couple of days, so until Mercury goes direct. But I don't want to confuse things, because Mercury is actually in your sixth house, but it rules the third house in the universal chart. So there you go. Jupiter in the third house. I'm not going to go into that, what the emphasis is too much. But one thing I will say, because the retrograde can be more of an internalized thing, is that for Capricorns, and this is especially important because you have Pluto transiting your sign for all these years. So this is very transformative for you, once in a lifetime kind of thing. Thinking about, just thinking about what the sign of Capricorn represents, and knowing that, you do tend to be very ambitious and very much connected to your place in the world. And yet knowing that this world is temporary. I mean, there are plenty of Capricorns who have embraced this concept, who get it, but they still have that desire, and it's baked into you. So it's not something bizarre or inappropriate, but how can you enhance it? How can you take it to the next level? So it doesn't just become some kind of base kind of a drive to be a success in the world. And it's kind of based on the ego more than anything really that helps other people, because it can be a win-win situation where you are successful in life in the classic sense of the word. I mean, if we look at it in terms of just, that you make a nice living, you have, a great a stellar reputation, that people say that know that you're talented in your particular area of life. I mean, that's not to stroke the ego, but it is so that, if you have this reputation, then you will always have the ability to serve others. So it helps those other people too. It always helps to know who the talented people are in this world. But you can benefit, it can be mutually beneficial. But unfortunately, sometimes when people get too caught up in greed, or, it's funny, the devil card is connected to Capricorn, and one of the key words is greed. Greed and this self-serving mentality, then you can not be helping other people. It's really all about yourself, and you're really not helping yourself. So this is a chance for you. Jupiter can represent your values, your ethics, and the third house is your mentality, how you think, operating, how you speak. If you're like in sales, are you being genuine, or are you just trying to sell as much as you can? You can be authentic while still, being a good salesperson. Okay. So on the 22nd, Mercury goes direct in that 6th house. And in the coming days, as Mercury comes out of its shadow, you come out of your shadow. I won't say a mental fog, but maybe, really being torn on which way to kind of proceed. On the 24th, there's a full moon at 3 degrees of Capricorn in your sign. So, those of you who are born, the vast majority of you may actually experience this in your 12th house, not your 1st house. An example, let's say your rising sign is 4 degrees of Capricorn. Well, this full moon is at 3 degrees. So the rising sign, that's your natal chart. So that's where the 1st house cusp is, 4 degrees. So 3 degrees is going to be in the 12th house. And so if you're 25 degrees Capricorn rising, but the sun sign too, because I don't want to get too far into that, but I'm just saying that many of you will experience this in your 12th house, okay? So because of that, this will be more of letting go of self-defeating patterns and other types of, things. Self-defeating patterns can be addictions, erroneous ideas about life, and with the Mercury in its shadow, that could even involve your service to others. It could be like, what am I here for? These kinds of things. Mars in the 8th house can be like really wanting to probe these deeply. If you feel like you're undergoing a spiritual awakening, this can just enhance that. So I'm happy that the majority of you are actually experiencing this in the 12th house, because I think that this is a great accompaniment to some of these other transits. Jupiter in the 3rd, these things can really work well in tandem and can assist a spiritual awakening. You might have prophetic dreams. Your dream state might be off the charts. Pay attention to your dreams. Don't just think that they're crazy. Try to interpret them. Try to see what they mean. For the early degree Sun and rising people, they will be in the 1st house, and this is a conscious letting go of the self. There's actually a connection between the 12th and the 1st house when you have full moons and lunar eclipses and solar eclipses and new moons in these houses. I feel that that the rebirth can, be either at the cellular level or the karmic level, with the 12th house and the overt level, the 1st house. But with the full moon, it's more of the endings and the flowering, if you will. I think the full moon lunar eclipse was a flower moon. But the awakening, the birthing, process, the harvest time, all of that kind of connection. And the first house being overt means that the conscious, your mundane life, your daily life, there might be some kind of an ending there. So instead of the 12th house, which is more internalized, it's a water house, we have this first house, which is more of it's a fire house. It's the house of the self. So ending something in your life on a day, for the daily life, or, a significant change in your life. And then on the 27th, Venus goes into Leo. So now Venus goes into that 8th house and joins Mars there. Very good for getting intimate with someone, really, feeling that intensity of the love, the bond between you and another person. So this is great for the committed relationships, for sure. And money, money coming to you from wills and other people as the source. So that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that you enjoyed this, resonated with it. If you would like a more expansive look at your chart, be it analyzing your natal chart, the cosmic blueprint for your life, and or looking at transits for the coming year, you can click on the link below to find out my offerings. I do have a special, which is a double reading, hour each for a special price for a deep discount. I think at least $20, something like that. Which, how much you would pay for those readings, individually. And I have to say, I think my readings are a lot less expensive than most people's. From what I've checked, I checked to see what other people charge. Just when you first start out, you're like, okay, how much should I charge? You have no idea, and then you check around, and So anyway, I hope that you connected with this and have a great month. Take care. Bye.